So here to speak on some of these initiatives, we have, of course, Fire Chief Emily Jaramillo, APD Commander, Southeast Command, Luke Langwit, and our ACS Director, Mariela Ruiz-Angel, and from our Fire Investigations Division, Captain Ramirez. So with that, I'll hand it off to Fire Chief Jaramillo.
All right, thank you, Jason. Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to just speak really to our outside fires portion of this. In 2023, Albuquerque Fire Rescue responded to 1,174 outside fire calls. There's many different reasons we respond to these calls, anywhere from dumpster fires, sometimes people burning things in their backyard. But for the purpose of today, we're going to talk about the large increase we've seen in this winter related to outside illegal fires that are burning mostly on public property. So as it became cooler this fall and winter, AFR started noticing a significant increase in 911 calls for service for outside fires. And we're a very data-driven department, so we monitored this increase and how it was affecting our ability to respond to calls for service. It quickly became apparent that we needed a solution to manage the increase. So at the end of December, we reassigned personnel to one of our wildland brush trucks named Brush 3. That's the trucks right back here. This is typically a truck that we use for bosque patrol or wildland fires, things like that. But we decided to reassign personnel to this truck to take calls for service for these outside fires. And more importantly, we also wanted to proactively patrol certain areas of town where we were seeing really high increases in those outside fires. That way we could spot the fire before someone needed to call it in. So we are committed to providing timely fire and emergency medical services to the public when you call 911. And our data was showing that the highest demand for response to these outside fires was along the central corridor in the southeast area of town, which Station 11, where we're at today, is one of our stations that serves this area. We wanted to make sure that our citizens in the southeast do not have delayed fire and emergency medical response, and thus we implemented Brush 3 on December 30th. First of all, I want to thank the 8 personnel that are volunteered to take a temporary reassignment to this truck to fill it throughout the winter months and the cold months. So we have a couple of them here today that are on duty. I believe a big reason that this pilot program has been so successful is that the firefighters that are assigned to this truck have been really motivated to not only take those calls for service, but also do that proactive patrolling that they've been doing throughout the night. We did use existing staffing to pilot this program through the cold months, so this is not a truck, obviously, that we normally staff. And also another important part of this is that it didn't compromise any of our other services to implement Brush 3. So they moved over onto the truck, but we're just backfilling their positions while they're doing this duty. In 2024, we have already responded to 2,130 outside fires. So that's almost double the number that we ran in 2023. And we're about 7-8 weeks into 2024. And in just that same time period in 2024, Brush 3 has taken about 1,100 of those calls. So about half of the calls for service for these outside fires has been taken by Brush 3, this truck that we have here today. This has really helped us keep our frontline resources available for those higher acuity fire and EMS calls that we also are responding to in this area. So when someone calls 911 for an outside fire, it elicits an immediate response from AFR, whether that be Brush 3 or frontline engine. While the fire may have been lit simply to warm individuals outdoors or to help cook their food, many of these fires are lit in areas that are dangerous to the individuals or the surrounding structures. In a matter of minutes, a campfire can spread to a building, to dry brush and weeds, tents, or create a life-threatening situation for the people around the area. Because of the potential risks associated with these illegal fires, AFR has a directive to extinguish every outside fire that we encounter. Often there are individuals present, and we always offer them a warm place to stay, and we work very closely with ACS, who will talk on this a little bit more here today. But we work really closely with ACS to make sure if anybody is outside burning and we put their fire out, that they are offered transport to somewhere warm to stay for the night. We do understand that these nights are very cold, some of these nights are, But because these fires can quickly become dangerous, it's critical to extinguish them and maintain the safety for the public. AFR is proud to report that the implementation of Brush 3 has made a significant positive impact on our ability to adapt to the needs of the community that we serve. We specifically chose to support our citizens who live, work, and own businesses in areas that we have high rates of outside fires, like the southeast area of Albuquerque. This is a very complicated issue that not only affects our unsheltered folks, but also our residents that live and work in these neighborhoods. It is important for AFR in the city. It is important to AFR in the city that we are addressing the concerns and quality of life issues for our community members in the southeast, as well as across the city related to these outside fires. Additionally, like I said before, every person that we've encountered at an illegal fire has been offered a warm place to stay for the night if they choose to do so. AFR will continue to monitor the demands for service and adjust our operations as necessary to provide timely, quality fire and EMS responses through the city of Albuquerque. There are many aspects to this work, and so we have some of our other partners here today from ACS and APD, as well as our captain from Fire Investigations, to talk a little bit about some of the other related topics to these outside fires. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, Chief. Next, we'll have ACS Director Ruiz Angel come speak some words.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just like Emily, Chief Jaramillo explained, homelessness is really complicated. And part of that is that we're trying to always find the balance between humanity and following laws, right? And I think that's always trying to figure out how do we, one, support the people who are dealing with homelessness, right? This has been years in the making. But how do we also support our business owners and our residential community that also keeps them safe as well? And so with ACS, we've been able to find a nice balance between the enforcement and actually the piece of the humanity that we know we need and that people on the streets need to be able to have that support. So since ACS was created in 2021, we've taken over 60,000 calls for service. And most of those calls do go to, unfortunately, unsheltered calls for service. And a lot of times, these are people who are dealing with different issues of addiction, their mental health. And so, as Chief Jaramillo said, a lot of this is also some of them needing to keep warm at night. What we have done to try to boost and make sure that we're keeping communities safe, though, is really help with the transportation piece and making sure that we are moving 24/7. So in August of 2020 of this last year, we were able to start a 24/7 operation, which allows us to now go to those late night calls for service where people are burning fires. And so we have been, thankfully trained by a fire. For small fires, we can help put those out. For larger ones, we do almost always require AFR and APD to come out to be able to assess and address those quickly, but also with always the backing of there's transportation to a shelter. We always have a bed for people. And we also are taking people to other providers as well. So we are seeing an increase in our transports to hospitals, to nonprofits, to detox locations, and to the shelter. So this has been a really good mix of operations in regards to public safety, right? It's about finding good balance. To this date, we've taken over 600 transportation calls just to get people off the streets. And we see that number increasing. Now, again, we want to make sure that we understand ACS is you can reach us through 311 and 911 for calls for service that typically have mental health and behavioral health issues, but we also go out to a lot of encampments. And if you need to get a hold of our graveyard transportation emergency line, you can call us at 505-549-0044. Otherwise, I think we are going to continue to operate as we can to continue to serve our community as a whole, and hopefully, again, continue to reach out to these communities who are in need and who need to really get the services that they need to be able to recover and get back into society. But we definitely know we need to find the balance between all of it for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Now we'll have Captain Ramirez from our Fire Investigations Division come up and speak to you guys.
Good morning. My name is Captain Jason Ramirez, in charge of our Fire Investigations Division with Albuquerque Fire Rescue. Our main responsibility is to investigate fires that seem to be incendiary in nature or otherwise intentionally set by individuals. We also investigate fires to help determine the origin and cause for unknown fires or unknown of how the fire started, as well as any severe injuries or bodily deaths that may occur as a result of the fire. We have investigators that are on duty 24/7 and available for our crews and are able to respond in a timely fashion. We have some additional call-out criteria that we have within our standard operating procedures that we also respond to for the citizens of Albuquerque and within our department. Some of the highlights of our division is that being able to prosecute cases. Last year in 2023, we had our highest conviction rate for the division with 53.5%, meaning that of the number of incendiary fires or fires classified as arson, we were able to prosecute those cases, and that resulted in arrest or some type of arrest warrant for those suspects. So last year was a productive year for us. This year, we are 100%. The fires that have been classified as incendiary or arson in nature, we do have 100% clearance rate. So far we are on track to hopefully exceed that number from last year. Some of the other duties that we perform is we have an accelerant canine. And the handler, Canine Wheezy, she's able to detect the smallest traces of any accelerants that may have been used on a fire. She's an available resource throughout the state of New Mexico. Her and her handler, Lieutenant Gunderson, also a vital resource to the state fire marshal's office, and they are able to travel throughout the state to help any other agencies in fire investigations as well. One of the things that we do as far as scene examinations, we are all law enforcement certified, so we're able to provide legal action. We need good evidence, good credible witnesses, good statements, things that we can use to be able to prove that a crime was committed. We work hand in hand with our DA's office to see if we have enough information to go ahead and pursue legal action and write an arrest warrant or be able to pursue, like I said, that prosecution. So far, our investigators have done a great job over the last few years, and we work hand in hand, like I said, with our fire crews as well as APD. Another aspect of our division is we have a YFAP program, a Youth Fire Setter Awareness Program. This is geared towards individuals who may be curious with starting fires and may have started a fire on accident, and that's where we can come in and intervene as the initial step to try and provide resources and education to those juveniles. If it's determined that it's out of our expertise, if you will, we'll go ahead and refer that those parents and those juveniles to a clinician to hopefully get them the resources that we need to start going down the right path. With that, like I said, we had a busy night. Lieutenant Ferris said there was some fires last night. Our crews responded to one of those fires, so they are under investigation. We did respond to the fire on Sunday at the laundromat, so that fire is currently under investigation, working on several leads that we did encounter over the last few days. So we are working hand in hand with our investigators who are on duty and anybody who can help provide those credible resources so we can hopefully identify those suspects and prosecute. So thank you.
Thank you, Captain Ramirez. Next up, we'll have Commander Lingwit from APD.
Good morning, everyone. First off, I'd like to say I hope that this model or collaboration between AFR, the Albuquerque Police Department, ACS, I hope this is a model that will continue every year from now because it comes down to public safety. Again, there's individuals that, especially during the colder months, that they want to stay warm, and we recognize that, so it's nice having a partner like ACS on board that we can contact them and have their responders come and help facilitate transport or get them to resources to keep them off of the streets, especially when it's cold too. Working with AFR and ACS, We've seen how it really does help public safety for the community. I have numerous businesses within the Southeast Area Command where these open fires affect them. A numerous amount of businesses that have been affected by it. Just 2 weeks ago, it even touched one of our city councilors, where her business, behind her business, due to a dumpster fire, her dumpster was completely damaged. The paint on the outside of her structure was damaged to where she had to replace that as well. Thankfully, the structure didn't catch on fire and no one got hurt, but again, the property damage alone, it can affect someone's livelihood, and that happens all across the city. So that's why it's important that, especially from being law enforcement, that we do make sure that there's that accountability piece, and that comes with enforcement. There's several ordinances, statutes, and laws that we enforce. Specifically for this, there's ordinances about having open fires. Additionally, when the officers do go on scene that do work this operation, there's other ordinance violations that they do have to conduct enforcement on, whether if it's criminal trespass against our businesses or if it's blocking the roadways or the sidewalks, public nuisance. These are the type of ordinances where our officers are writing citations and turning in criminal summons to hold those individuals accountable. Again, when our officers encounter individuals that do just want to stay warm and are looking for those resources, that's what's nice about having such a great partnership behind me, to where we can contact those resources and get them to respond and get these individuals the help that they need. To date, I can tell you, since we started working this specific operation along the Central Avenue corridor in the southeast for a little more than a month now, like the fire chief said, this hasn't affected APD's manning levels. We're bringing in officers outside of their regular shifts to work this operation. Last week, on one day, we ended up clearing 7 felony warrants. These are violent crime and property crime warrants that these individuals were outstanding for. And 7 warrants were cleared from our officers specifically working this operation while they were putting out the fires. So the way it looks is when an officer and riding with the arson investigators, when they did spot a fire, and they were able to confirm that an individual or individuals were, having an open fire, our officers contact them. They have to get their information for the documentation purposes for the report. They do warrant checks. They bring in resources if resources are requested, or they'll send them on their way with a citation. If they do have warrants, they are taken to jail, and that's what happened last week. With one day of the operation, we cleared 7 felony warrants. So additionally to that, though, it's important for us to remember too that the risk that can also come when we have a lot of individuals, and I understand the intent is to stay warm, but it's no surprise that, especially here in the Southeast, that a lot of these individuals, whether if it's liquor or controlled substances like fentanyl, when these groups congregate for a while, just due to the controlled substances or altercations breaking out, we've seen it happen to now we have additional aggravated assaults. We have shootings, and this happens as well too. So what I really see the value in this operation is we're identifying these fires right away, and again, because we've seen how it can be destructive, it can destruct businesses. We identify them, we break that up in that sense, and then we keep people from congregating to where additional crimes can happen. So like I said in the beginning, I really hope that this is an operation that we can do every year, the collaboration between APD, AFR, and ACS, because at the end of the day, it's about public safety. We are keeping our community safe, our neighborhoods, our business community, and the individuals involved too. We want to get them to places to where they are safe as well, and there's not a danger to them from the fire or from being hurt here on the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander. So with that, we'll close this out. We'll be available for some questions afterwards. Probably can't speak to anything specific, especially regarding instance like the laundromat fire. That's still a case that's under investigation. Another point that I wanted to make was Brush 3 is in no way intended to replace Type 1 fire engine that's behind me. That's a Type 6 brush truck. It has 300 gallons of water and a 100-gallon-a-minute pump, which is totally suitable for a lot of these nuisance fires that we're responding to, but it doesn't replace the staff and the capabilities of a truck behind me that's capable of flowing 2,000 gallons of water, and the 4 personnel that are on that. So I just wanted to make that distinction, and if you guys have any questions, we can open up to a few of you. Go ahead.
Yeah, what kind of resources are being offered to businesses, you know, if their property is damaged by fires, and you know, and what other proactive things to prevent, you know, fires that can spill over into their business?
Right. Well, I think the most proactive thing that we've done so far is just putting this truck into service. That they're not just responding to calls for service that get generated; they're actually patrolling some of these areas. So stopping one of those fires before it grows or before they even have the chance to start, it's the most that we can do. I can't really speak to what resources other than insurance are being provided to businesses. Like, there's nothing. I just. Yep.
Thank you for the question. Great question. I can tell you with the business community a lot of times, and this isn't specific just to the fires, but the fact that I'm having communication with them about the fires, it opens up bigger doors, I should say. At the Albuquerque Police Department, we do have our crime prevention specialists. And so what I usually do is I offer them as a resource, and this is a free resource to businesses, where our crime prevention specialists, they can go out and they can conduct basically assessments and surveys of the interior, of the outside as well, looking at environmental factors that would, from a crime perspective, if there's changes that they can make to the environment, the landscape, we're talking about like motion detecting lighting, fencing, they implement these type of changes. As far as the appeal for whether if it's the criminal element or anyone to look at that business as a place to commit crimes or to stay there and decide to start a fire, that's been very beneficial. So our crime prevention specialists, they offer these surveys, and they're a great resource to our businesses, and I've had very good feedback from our businesses from the work that our crime prevention specialists have provided. Thank you for the question.
Go ahead.
Just with the increase of outdoor fires that you all have responded to, are you all planning to keep this brush truck in use past the pilot for like 3 months that you all have?
So part of the pilot is that we're going to keep reevaluating that data as it comes in, and determine how long we need to keep the truck in service for, and then start making determinations about how long we're going to keep it running for, and start planning for next year. Is it anything else? Anyone else? Go ahead.
Out of a question for APD, it was mentioned that once you guys are responding to a fire, you guys offer help and stuff. But out of these fires, how many people are actually getting arrested? Do you have that number?
So I don't have the exact number, but again, and this is in line with the settlement agreements that we're involved in as well. When there's a violation of an ordinance or a statute, especially if it's at the misdemeanor or petty misdemeanor level, and a lot of these violations are misdemeanors, whether if it's criminal trespass, public nuisance, obstructing the sidewalk, having an open fire within the city, these are misdemeanors. So we'll be sure to issue what we call a criminal summons or a citation, to where they are not being put in handcuffs and taken to the Metropolitan Detention Center, right? Basically, we're giving them a notice saying, hey, we will file this, and you're going to have to appear in criminal court. And that's what's being happened. What I did touch on earlier, though, is the officers have to obtain these individuals' information to put on the citation and to put on the police report as well. If they do have warrants, though, at that point, that's out of our control. A warrant is a court order from a judge basically saying, hey, if you come into contact with this individual, you need to place them under arrest and transport them to the detention center. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Good. Couple more here. You got one?
I know this weekend we saw how big, some of these fires, even when someone's just trying to stay warm, how big they can get. And it could even take down an entire business, So is this like a real threat that happens pretty often? Or, other businesses, what can you tell them if they're nervous, especially along the central corridor where you guys say that you get the most calls?
Well, as the chief mentioned, and I mentioned earlier, we're not just actually responding to calls for service. These trucks are actually out there patrolling to try to get ahead of some of these things. But if anybody sees something that's an open burning situation, or some of these large encampments, they need to call us so we can go out and put them out. If we don't get the call, sometimes we never know about them. I know that I have read some of those comments that fire just lets these fires burn. even though we're patrolling out there and we answer every call for service we get, we just don't always get that call. So if somebody sees it, they got a call. And as you mentioned, all these fires have the potential to spread, which is why we've taken the directive that we're putting out all fires that we respond to. So we have to know about them to be able to respond.
When all the calls that
You mentioned too, we only take them through 911, like, because we get them through 311, but
Right.
those don't elicit an immediate response.
Yeah, so that's another good point to make. We only respond to the 911 calls that are generated. So there's not another way to mechanism to call them in. So make sure that if these people see these fires, to call them in through 911, and we'll respond. Let me get her real quick, because I got one from you. You got a question too, right?
Last one. So what are the recommendations for the community besides telling when they see something? What are more recommendations for them?
I think the organization in these neighborhoods and people talking to each other and talking to your neighbors, being active with your local area commands in the police department, or even your local fire stations in the neighborhood's the best way to try to stay ahead of some of these and try to prevent some of these things before they start. All right, everyone else good?
can I ask
One more.
with the fires and all the calls that you guys were mentioning, is there any plans, maybe not this year but next year, to possibly have another fire truck?
Want me to take that one, Chief?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on up, Chief.
It's a little bit complicated because the way that it looked last year, it was just during the cold months. So we don't want to staff a truck year round that might go from being really busy to just not doing any work when it gets warmer. So we'll kind of wait and see what happens this year, because last year we saw the calls for service for outside fires really dip in April, and then they stayed low throughout the summer, and then they picked back up in November. So if we see this high rate of fires that continues through the summer, then we'll have to figure out what kind of resource that we need, because another important piece of this area is that these are our busiest trucks in the city. Some of these trucks in this area are the busiest trucks in the country, and so they just can't take any more of that volume. We want to make sure that this engine and our rescue are able to get out when people call for structure fires and life-threatening emergencies. So if we see that this doesn't dip in April, we'll have to evaluate what we'll do next year, but it might mean adding more resources. But we're going to watch and see what the numbers do before we make a decision. And then also, there's a lot that comes into that, hiring firefighters and all, there's a lot of funding issues that come along with adding just one truck to a station. And then
I
this
was going,
station's
forward in
bursting at
like kind of
seams.
December of this year when it's
Yeah.
colder, because I know it's gonna go down during the summer.
Yeah.
But maybe during the winter in next year, if it's possibly a plan that you guys could add another truck.
Yes, absolutely. If we see it dip and then we see this pick up again in next fall, when it started getting cold, then we'll just restaff the same truck next year and do the same thing. I don't know if the personnel are going to volunteer to do it again. They've been working really hard, so but yeah, we'll staff it again. It's a great question.
All right, thank you all again for coming out. Thanks again to Station 11 for opening up their home to us. Thanks APD, ACS. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Public Realm with host Joni Palmer.
Hello, I'm Joni Palmer, and welcome back to Take Another Look at Albuquerque's Public Art.